Before time began, there was the cube. We know not where it comes from, only that it holds the power to create worlds and fill them with life. That is how our race was born. For a time, we lived in harmony. But like all great power, some wanted it for good, others for evil. And so began the war. A war that ravaged our planet until it was consumed by death. And the cube was lost to the far reaches of space. We scattered across the galaxy, hoping to find it and rebuild our home, searching every star, every world. And just when all hope seemed lost, message of a new discovery drew us to an unknown planet called Earth.
The hexagon is similar to Earth's polar vortex, which has winds blowing in a circular fashion around the pole. Saturn's vortex can fit 4 Earths inside of it and extends 60 miles deep into Saturn's clouds.
And what's more bizarre, Voyager saw little tiny clouds going around at about 100 meters per second, which is about 200 miles an hour, going around this racetrack. People thought, well, maybe it's just a temporary thing. How could this stay there? It's been there now for at least 20 years, and we're going, what is this?
The following are transliterated versions of the sacred names that are in use by various sacred name groups. And let me emphasize, God's personal name is not the Hebrew name of Elohim or any of the other titles. His name is just his name. Of all the pronunciations, Yahweh and Jehovah, correctly pronounced as Yehovah, are the most accepted, and really, all the variations cling to either one, coming from the root, Yah. Yahweh's worship had its orgiastic aspects is not its only tie to Canaanite paganism. Yahweh is also referred to in the Bible as El, or its plural Elohim. The name El can merely mean a god, or can mean the specific deity. The term Yahweh, transliterated Yah, is also pronounced Yah-Yah, Yah, Yahu, or Yo. In the ancient gods, Reverend James avers that Yahweh was possibly a minor Canaanite god named Yahu or Yo. Thus, says he, on a cuneiform tablet at Tanakh, dated between 2000 and 3000 BC, the name Yahu occurs. And the abbreviation Yo appears on the handles of jars at a later date in Palestine, as well as in the form YW at Ugarit. In Jewish theology, Yahweh came to dominate the extensive ancient pantheon, originating as a local tribal volcano and fire god, to become the god of the cosmos. Concerning Yahweh, in Moses and monotheism, Sigmund Freud observed, Yahweh was undoubtedly a volcano god. I am certainly not the first to be struck by the similarity of the name Yahweh to the root of the name of another god, Jupiter, Jovis, Jove. The volcano, like any other impressive or fearful aspect of nature, had become an object of worship for human beings from the time of the earliest Stone Age. Yet the original Yahweh, which was one of the gods of the Old Testament, seems to have begun as a volcano god. Yahweh was originally the god of the storm or the volcano, whereas the god of the Israelites, Allah, was a sky god. The god of Judah was originally a volcano god, which is well attested in the Bible. This volcano god was known as Yahweh, spelled Y-H-W-H, since vowels weren't used in Hebrew writings or by the Egyptians for that matter. The Bible has many examples demonstrating that Yahweh was thought of as a volcano god. For example, Exodus 24:17, to the Israelites the glory of the Lord looked like a consuming fire on top of the mountain. Exodus 13:21, and the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of a cloud, to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire, to give them light, to go by day and night. Genesis 19:24, the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. Deuteronomy 4:11, and he came near and stood under the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire unto the midst of heaven, with darkness, clouds, and thick darkness. Judges 5:5, the mountains melted from before the Lord, even that Sinai from before the Lord God of Israel. Numbers 11:1, now the people complained about their hardships in the hearing of the Lord, and when he heard them his anger was aroused. Then fire from the Lord burned among them and consumed some of the outskirts of the camp. Deuteronomy 5:23, and it came to pass, when ye heard the voice out of the midst of the darkness, for the mountain did burn with fire, that ye came near unto me, even all the heads of your tribes, and your elders. Psalms 97:5, the hills melted like wax at the presence of the Lord, at the presence of the Lord of the whole earth. Psalms 104:32, he looketh on the earth, and it trembleth, he toucheth the hills, and they smoked. Psalms 144:5, bow thy heavens, O Lord, and come down, touch the mountains, and they shall smoke. Isaiah 34:9-10, and the streams thereof shall be turned into pitch, and the dust thereof into brimstone, and the land thereof shall become burning pitch. It shall not be quenched night nor day, the smoke thereof shall go up forever. From generation to generation it shall lie waste, none shall pass through it forever and ever. Isaiah 64 1-3. Oh, that thou didst rend the heavens, that thou didst come down, that the mountains might flow down at thy presence, as when the melting fire burneth. The fire causeth the waters to boil, to make thy name known to thine adversaries, that the nations may tremble at thy presence. When thou didst terrible things which we looked not for, thou camest down, the mountains flowed down at thy presence. Jeremiah 51:25. Behold, I am against thee, O destroying mountain, saith the Lord, which destroyest all the earth. And I will stretch out mine hand upon thee, and roll thee down from the rocks, and will make thee a burnt mountain. Micah 1:4. And the mountains shall be molten under him, and the valleys shall be cleft, as wax before the fire, and as the waters that are poured down a steep place. Nahum 1:5-6. The mountains quake at him, and the hills melt, and the earth is burned at his presence, yea, the world, and all that dwell therein. Who can stand before his indignation? And who can abide in the fierceness of his anger? His fury is poured out like fire, and the rocks are thrown down by him. Exodus 33:10. Whenever the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance to the tent, they all stood and worshipped, each at the entrance to their tent. Psalm 99:7. He spoke to them from the pillar of cloud. They kept his statutes and the decrees he gave them. Isaiah 4:5. Then the Lord will create over all of Mount Zion and over those who assemble there a cloud of smoke by day and a glow of flaming fire by night. Over everything the glory will be a canopy. Yahweh was undoubtedly a volcano god. There was no reason for the inhabitants of Egypt to worship him. I am certainly not the first to be struck by the similarity of the name Yahweh to the root of the name of another god, Jupiter, Jovis. The voice of the Lord flashes forth a fire. In Daniel's vision, Yahweh claims for his throne a flame of fire, around which flows like a moat a river of fire. Fire is, in fact, as John Laughlin confirms, the oldest symbol with which Yahweh is associated in the Old Testament. Yahweh was certainly a volcano god. Yahweh was the god of the southern Palestinian tribes, who associated this concept of deity with Mount Horeb, the Sinai volcano. We are quite certain that the original Yahweh was a volcano in Sinai.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
We hear that God's name is Yahweh. Let me tell you something about Yahweh. I mean, I've spent 42 years looking at this stuff, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm amazed at how many people don't even begin to know what these words mean. Yahweh is not the name of God. Yahweh in Hebrew is an expressive term. It's expressing something. It's describing something. It's not a formal name of God. Yahweh in Hebrew simply means, and the best way to explain what the word means is to take a garden hose and hold the end of it, turn on the water, and you feel the pressure building up. When you release the hose, it's a release of pressure. It's a release of energy. In the Hebrew, in the ancient Hebrew, the release of dynamic energy was called Yahweh. And it was always associated with sex. It's the building up of the sexual urge and the releasing of sex in the sex act was referred to in the ancient Phoenician Canaanite system as being one with Yahweh, the explosion of divine creativity. That's why our Jewish physicists have told us the universe came into existence by a big bang.
Now, back to our show.
Moloch, also known as Molech, Molech, Moloch, Molech, Moloch, Moloch, Melech, Milcom, or Molcom, representing Semitic MLK, a Semitic root meaning king, is the name of an ancient Ammonite god. Moloch worship was practiced by the Canaanites, Phoenicians, and related cultures in North Africa and the Levant. It is quite possible that the local Molech, or Moloch, of Jerusalem was identified as an aspect of both Yahweh and Milcom. Another infamous sun and fire god was Melech, Malish, Moloch or Milcom, to whom the Canaanites, Phoenicians and Israelites sacrificed their children. Still another alter ego of Yahweh was the God of Abraham, El/Bel/Baal Shaddai. The Canaanite fire and sun god, Yahweh, was also Baal himself, Hosea 2:16. He is likewise Elon, the Most High God, Genesis 14:18, the sun at its zenith. The Yahweh of the Jews is the Yahweh of the Egyptians, Phoenicians and Chaldeans, identified as such in the 1st century BCE by Diodorus Siculus. First, Siculus recounts that Zoroaster and others claimed that their laws were given to them by the Good Spirit. He then says, among the Judeans, Moises attributed them, the laws, to the god called by the name of Yahweh. As the Kenite smith god, Yahweh, is Elath-lahu, the name Yahu, appearing in Egypt as early as around 2500 BCE, as a title of the god Set. Lahu is also an epithet of Set's brother, Horus, as well as of Dionysus, as Iacchus. The Egyptians thus possessed a high-ranking god named Lahu, or Jah. Concerning this fact, CMU comments that Philo and Josephus do not deny that the Jews borrowed circumcision from the Egyptians, and he next asks, why then might they not borrow a god also? Yahweh's title of Lahu indicates him to be a ruler of the solar year, probably a transcendental combination of Set, Osiris and Horus. In fact, child sacrifice may plausibly be related to certain variations of Mediterranean, Phoenicio-Punic, worship of the Phoenician deity El, in his instantiations as Hellenistic Kronos Saturn and Punic Baal-Haman, with whom both Yahweh and the Ammonite high deity Milcom were likely identified. Again, the New Testament writers rendered the word Amos 5:26 not as king but as Molech, validating that some of the mentions of king in the Old Testament in reality are references to the Semitic god, a number of whose attributes Yahweh absorbed.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It has to do with the planet Saturn. Saturn, we're told that in the Old Testament that the Hebrew people, the Jewish people, were worshipers of one God. That's never been true, not true now, and never will be true. That's just one more story that's been given to us. It's never been true. The Hebrew people were worshipers of many gods, many different divine beings. They were the most eclectic theology on the face of the earth. Next to modern-day Christianity is Judaism. Eclectic meaning it has collected from all over the world concepts and ideas. Eclectic meaning it has collected from all over the world concepts and ideas. Eclectic meaning it has collected from all over the world concepts and ideas and put it together and called it today Judaism. Judaism today is the most eclectic religion on the face of the earth.
Now, back to our show.
In the form of a dove, she, Sophia, descended into the water and begot Saturn, who is identical with Yahweh. The Minoans seem to have been part of the same culture as that of the city of Ugarit, both sharing a Canaanite pantheon out of which were derived both the Greek pantheon and the worship of the god known as El, Saturn, with whom the southern deity Yahweh became identified. The connection with Saturn is highly significant, since in the astrology of antiquity, Saturn was considered to be the star of Israel of the Old Testament Yahweh. Yahweh succeeded El, and even became identified with him. As chief deity he also seems to have appropriated his consort, Asherah. The Semitic Yahweh or Yah was likewise, Sabazios, Sabaoth, or Sabat, the god of the planet Saturn, who was also known as Dionysus or Bacchus. Indeed, Dionysus Sabazius was the original Jehovah of the Passover. In this regard, Plutarch identified the Jehovah of the Feast of the Tabernacles with Dionysus Liber, the god of wine. Plutarch further remarked that the Jews abstain from swine's flesh because their Dionysus is also Adonis, who was killed by a boar. The identification of Yahweh with Dionysus is evident as well from a coin found near Gaza dating to the 5th century BCE and possessing, on the obverse, a bearded head of Dionysus type, on the reverse a bearded figure in a winged chariot, designed in Hebrew characters JHWH Jehovah. In the magical texts and elsewhere in the early Christian era, Osiris, the Greek gods, and the archangel Sabaoth are mentioned in the same breath. As Sabazios, etc. represents Saturn or Kronos, so Yahweh is identified with that planet as well. As we have seen, Saturn is yet another sun god, or aspect of the god sun. A silver strand probably struck by the Persian administration in Jerusalem, 4th century BCE. The coin shows a deity seated on a winged wheel, often interpreted as a depiction of Yahweh, Yahu. Yahweh was identified with Baal, that is, Typhon in Egypt, whose image was worshipped by man as say, one form of whom was Baal of the 7th heaven, or Saturn. Yahweh and Saturn change places in the flood story. Yahweh was held to be Saturn. The Arabian Dionysus is Yahweh. The Arabs adore Dionysus Moloch Yahweh, who is Abel, Baal, Bel. Bel is both Saturn and sun, hence the prophets of Baal contended with those of Yahweh. The Romans accused the Christians of human sacrifice during the mysteries of Saturn, clearly because the Romans identified Yahweh with Saturn, to whom, in Africa in particular, human beings had been sacrificed. Kronos Saturn, identified with the Jewish god and his 3 names Yah, the abbreviation of Yahweh, Sabaoth and Adonai. The Jews claimed that Moses received their religious laws from Yah. Yah is often associated or equated with Yahweh, and Deoldabaoth. Yahweh is Saturn, by he who is worshipped as Saturn. And according to Sedra News, the deity worshipped by the Chaldeans and Gnostics, those of the stones, known as Yah, the divinity whose name was ineffable, and whose secret was never to be uttered, was a divinity compounded of the sun, moon, and Saturn.
I saw some German dude interviewing Sun Ra, and he was saying, "Now tell the truth, Sun Ra. You tell the truth, Sun Ra. You never got to, you never did get to Jupiter. You never been to Jupiter." So Sun Ra said, "That's true. But I've been to Saturn."
The last planet I remember is planet Saturn. I'm from there. I've been to Jupiter too. But I didn't go by myself. Some other type of beings took me, the ones that's going to land soon.
He did get a passport which said that he was not born of Earth, that he was from Saturn.
They got little antennas over the eyes and little antennas over the ears. One each over, one over each ear. Something like Spock.
Man might have come from God. Why couldn't he have come from Saturn?
Questioner. Well, how were you able to make the transition from Venus? Did you have to change your dimension to walk upon the Earth? Ra. You will remember the exercise of the wind. The dissolution into nothingness is the dissolution into unity, for there is no nothing. From the sixth dimension, we are capable of manipulating, by thought, the intelligent infinity present in each particle of light, or distorted light, so that we were able to clothe ourselves in a replica visible in the third density of our mind-body-spirit complexes in the sixth density. We were allowed this experiment by the council which guards this planet. Questioner. Where is this council located? Ra. This council is located in the octave, or eighth dimension, of the planet Saturn, taking its place in an area which you understand in third-dimensional terms as the rings.
Father Sabino Maffeo has worked in the Vatican Observatory for over 40 years. He's written a book chronicling its history. The Pope's Observatory has an excellent reputation in the scientific community. The scientist priests look into the theories of relativity, quantum physics, evolution, and the Big Bang.
Are you living in a dream world? Yeah. A heart of sea bases these world. Yeah. A field of fantasies and hopes and dreams world of life. Breathe through the glitter cosmic beam, girl. Life is life. Yeah, about the diamond. Yeah, this one is real. For men, women, child to feel. Even in the dimness, it's shining like Lucy in the sky. Placed intricately in the mind's eye. Souls get all tattered and hearts get off kiltered, but choose the right path and all shall filter. Keep fighting like a soldier in this army of life. My rhymes keep flying, combinations on the mic. Had the great chemistry with artistry ignited me to move through the table adventures with alchemy. Yeah, releasing love through the form of art. You love it when I spit it, you love it when it's hard, like the spots we rock. Or downtown corner, see legends like my homies prior up a lot. Hands frozen, 30 degrees, warm up black and bleak, and still we quest the spot despite the chaos. Our psyches have no boundaries. Are you living in a dream world? Yeah, a heart of sea major seas world. Yeah, a field of fantasies and hopes and dreams world. Fly free into the glitter cosmic beam, girl. Are you living in a dream world? Yeah, yeah, a heart of sea major seas world. Yeah, a field of fantasies and hopes and dreams world. Fly free into the glitter cosmic beam, girl. It's the age of honeybee, man, the blunt split for twister. The verbal phrase quilter, rotation ripper. Sipping on the elixir that nourishes my tree of life. Keeping me young, helping me grow, helping me see the light. My inner sight, fight, flight, purpose and initiative. Shifts minds like grids and flips wigs like tricks. Roots run deep within this hip-hop kid. Revolutionary, blood significant. Forces of energy, sources stirring my world in motion. Big opposing to the notion of a beat break. The mind stays loaded like a briefcase full of jewels, tools, and fancy things that cause explosions. My rhymes guides like spirits, your freak yourself can feel it. All of like the planet, your higher self can understand it. Now do you have wisdom in your reality? Knowledge, understanding, and are you a G? Are you living in a dream world? Yeah, a heart of sea major seas world. A field of fantasies and hopes and dreams world. Fly free into the glitter cosmic beam, girl. Are you living in a dream world? Yeah, yeah, a heart of sea major seas world. A field of fantasies and hopes and dreams world. Fly free into the glitter cosmic beam, girl. This music's geared to your body's magnetics. Yo, devoted when I said it. See, no one gon' get it. Graffiti is my TV music, my occupation. Carried in some others with dynamic arrangements, furthering the evolution of soul. Not just the planet, the universe as a whole. The ultimate goal, peace to cease, police brutality, increase vitality, productive mentality, reality. Stacking my bricks, architect with a high impact in my spit. Open-minded and committed to what I start, get to the finish line. Every single time, but every single line that's smacking my lips. How I do anything is how I do everything when I produce. Roots create fruit, I'm juiced with elevation. False images you're faking, waterfall chasing, I'm not aching. Soundscaping through my incubation, checking. Are you living in a dream world? Yeah, a heart of sea major seas world. Yeah, a field of fantasies and hopes and dreams world. Fly free into the glitter cosmic beam, girl. Are you living in a dream world? Yeah, yeah, a heart of sea major seas world. Yeah, a field of fantasies and hopes and dreams world. Fly free into the glitter cosmic beam, girl. Yeah, Jericho battles. Welcome to the J-Rod Zoo, where we're cooler than a mountain climate. Yeah, come on. Jericho battles.
Swat.
Brutish, mystery music. Yo. I'm having back spasms where the drugs, he has them. The phantasm appears laughing in demon fashions. Control the masses, cause rackets and heads bashing. I'm crowd surfing, fans' hands tearing off my fabrics. Whip blashing like Christ's back, get a whip at it. I spit crack, you my fiends just like crack addicts. Backstabbing, you stashing bodies up in the attic. That's where the drugs and the loot go, faggot. I blast off, reppin' Earth on my space capade. Sharper than a razor blade, an earthling till my fucking grave. Parade around the streets with hooligans for many days. I'm dropping shit and fake MCs, shit just constipates. It's no debate, I end your dream and I change your fate. Controversy building up for all the cats that hate. Fake jakes need to reevaluate. I'm a mental case, music coming straight out the milk crates. This song goes out to all the heads out there getting high. This song's for all the trail heads with the snotty nose. This song goes out for all the heads that just don't give a fuck. This song's for all the hooligans that think they out of luck. This song goes out to all the heads out there getting high. This song's for all the trail heads with the snotty nose. This song goes out for all the heads that just don't give a fuck. This song's for all the hooligans that think they out of luck. Harmonic frequencies emitting from the rings of Saturn. I'm in the tavern spitting scattered universal patterns. YSH non-luminous like dark matter. Pockets fatter in my wonderland, I'm the Mad Hatter. I'm not a gangster rapper jabber when I spit chatter. Prattle blabber nonsense, I'm a paper stacker. A fucking actor when I'm on stage like Mick Jagger. Cut with daggers, still got swagger with my drunken stagger. So fuck y'all cats that don't believe in me. Cats that cheating me, no matter how hard you try, there's no defeating me. Your girl is feeding me, her pussy popping pleasing me. Her best friend is fiending me, you fake MCs just weaken me. Cushion reproceeds, yes I got need for these. She be on her knees begging me like boots please. I love sluts. YSH.
Because I think some people on this planet are going to wake up to realize that it's the unknown that they need to know.
Baal is the same as Bel, Belus or Baal-Hamon, and he was the supreme male divinity worshipped by the Chaldeans, Phoenicians and Canaanites. Baalim is plural. Baal means Lord and can be a title in front of a name such as in Lord Hammon, or Baal can be used alone and simply refer to the specific deity. Baal was also known as the Ancient One, the Ancient of Days, Rider of the Clouds, the Mighty One, the Hero, the Exalted One, the Prince and Lord of the Earth. Baal was originally a sun god. Among the Assyrians, by some system of sacred matters, both Saturn and Sol, that is the sun, are called Bel. The worship of Baal-Hamon flourished in the Phoenician colony of Carthage. Baal-Hamon was the supreme god of the Carthaginians, and is believed that this supremacy dates back to the 5th century BC, apparently after a breaking off of relationships between Carthage and Tyre, at the time of the Punic defeat in Himera. Scholars tend to see Baal-Hamon as more or less identical with the god El, who was also generally identified with Cronus and Saturn. The Roman god Saturn in Africa Proconsularis absorbed elements of the mythology associated with Baal-Hamon. Carthaginians brought the cult of Baal-Hamon with them to North Africa in the 9th century BC from their home in the Levant. Baal's usual designation was god of thunderstorms, agriculture, and the Lord of Heaven. Baal was also representative of the sun, fertility, and human sacrifice. It is doubtless the early Punic colonists brought their tradition of sacrificing children to Baal shortly after their arrival. After the Punic-Roman Wars between 265 through 146 BC, of which Rome triumphed, Rome seized and ordered Carthage destroyed. The Roman colonists quickly assimilated the figure of Baal-Hamon to Saturn. The Romans built some of their most beautiful temples to Saturn over sites formerly dedicated to Baal-Hamon. After the Romanization of Carthage, Saturn became the most honored by the Carthaginians, and Saturn was the Moloch of the Jewish scripture. Kivon or Gion is the planet Saturn, Baal also is Saturn, and thus Kivon is Baal. Child sacrifice remained a common practice. Offerings were then given to Saturn instead of the former Baal-Hamon. El and Baal are often associated with the bull in Ugaritic texts, as a symbol both of strength and fertility. They have also built the high places of Baal, to burn their sons with fire for burnt offerings unto Baal, Jeremiah 19:5. It seems Baal was later demonized as Belial, or Beelzebub. A common practice amongst tribal cultures was to demonize each other's conflicting gods, as to keep people from worshipping them. The term, Belial, is a Hebrew adjective meaning, worthless, from two common words Beli, without, and Yal, value. Beelzebub or Lord of the Flies is a derogatory Hebrew corruption of the original Ugaritic Baal-Zebul, which means Lord Baal or Master of the Heavenly House. Some Hebrew scholars maintain the translation as dung or excrement, giving Beelzebub the sarcastic meaning of Lord of Shit. Nonetheless, both Belial and Beelzebub are now names that were transferred to the devil and Satan. Yet another example of how gods are altered and absorb attributes of each other. Baal, Bel, Belus, Belial, Beliar and Beelzebub are names of one and the same personality, who in the New Testament is styled as Prince of this world, Prince of the power of the air and the God of this world. Furthermore, the worship of Baal is still prominent today. In Freemasonry, he is called and idolized as the supreme ruler of the universe or the great architect of the universe. The great architect is Jabelon or Jabelon, which breaks down to Jah, Bel and On, three ancient names of the sun god. Bel is the same god as the Phoenician Moloch. The Greeks, for the purpose of distinction, termed him the Tyrian Hercules. Freemasons call him their Tyrian architect. According to scripture, the temples of this idol were built on the tops of hills, or more frequently in solemn oak groves, the high hills and low vales, where the religious services of masonry are supposed to have been anciently practiced. In Babylon the oak tree was sacred to Bel. The oak of Morah, Genesis 12, 6-7. The oaks of Mamre, Genesis 13, 18 and 18, 1. And the diviner's oak, Judges 9, 37. The oak also appears to have been a symbol of worship among the Celts and ancient Britons. The Celts worshipped their god, Turt, under the form of this tree, and the Britons regarded it a symbol of their god, Dun-Awa, the god of thunder, from who, the Bacchus of the Druids, came the word Yule, but others derive it from Baal, Bel or Yule, who was the Celtic god of fire, and sometimes identified with the sun, and was also worshipped under the form of an oak. Baal was considered the same as the Roman Saturn, and his festival, that of Yule, was kept at Christmas, which was the time of Saturnalia. In ancient times the burning Yule log was always of oak.
I was particularly enchanted by something Velikovsky proposed in a work still unpublished at the time. He claimed that, in the earliest remembered epoch, the planet Saturn dominated the sky, close to the Earth, presiding over the mythic Golden Age. It was an outrageous idea, and yet I found in it the inspiration for a life's work. Ancient cultures the world over insisted that an exemplary sun once ruled the sky. For the Egyptians, this former power was the creator Atum-Ra, ruling from the center and summit of the sky. In ancient Mesopotamia, we see the primeval sun as a great turning wheel in the heavens, and the astronomers named this body as the planet Saturn. It was from the Romans that we received the planet's name, Saturn. But an archaic Latin name for Saturn was Sol, the sun. In earlier Greek texts, the planet Saturn, called Kronos, was also named Helios, the sun. Even the alchemists preserved this preposterous identity. They called Saturn the best sun. Best sun, superior sun, exemplary sun. The core idea always pointed directly to the axis of the sky, the celestial pole around which the heavens visually turn. As improbable as it may seem, this is where the Egyptians located their primeval sun god, Atum. This motionless spot in the heavens is precisely where later astronomical traditions from Greece to Persia and China all claimed that Saturn had ruled the world, a contradiction of every principle we take for granted today. Ancient chroniclers insisted that the planet Saturn, now just a speck in the sky, had presided over the Golden Age, an epoch of abundance, cosmic harmony, and grandeur. The archaic name of Italy was Saturnia, and tradition held that this very name was given to the original site of Rome. The Sabbath, The special day of rest and reverence was Saturni Dies, Saturn's Day, a day honored throughout the Mediterranean, the Near East, and beyond. The popular Roman festival, Saturnalia, was a symbolic return to the Saturnia Regna, Saturn's reign, the Golden Age. Much symbolic content of our own New Year's and Christmas celebrations will trace to the Roman Saturnalia and related ancient festivals. In one form or another, every culture that remembered Saturn's reign regarded the planet god as the father of kings, the father of the nation or the race. Ancient traditions identified the Ugaritic and Hebrew El as Saturn. And it was said that the Israelites once saw themselves as Saturn's children. In the same way, the Greeks invoked Kronos as their first father. And the Romans insisted that they were the true descendants of Saturn, arriving in Italy through the adventures of the legendary ancestor Aeneas. But there was a dark side to Saturn, reflecting the catastrophic end of the Golden Age. This was when, in the words of Manilius, Saturn, the first father, fell to the opposite end of the world axis. This sudden onset of chaos, when heaven itself seemed to fall out of control, has haunted civilizations across the millennia, erupting as doomsday anxiety, the fear that what happened once will happen again. It's almost impossible to believe that ancient people sacrificed their own children, either symbolically or literally, to the planet god Saturn. Saturn was remembered as the devourer of his own children, and as Moloch, demanding sacrifice, and as El, or the Elohim, commanding Abraham to sacrifice his own son, Isaac. In the face of evidence that cannot be denied, the reasonable course is to bring the catastrophic source of these memories into the light of day.
El is Saturn. The Phoenicians regarded El Saturn as their chief deity. Eusebius informs us that El, a name used also in the Bible as a name for God, was the name of Saturn. One of the favorite Canaanite and Israelite gods was El, who was the same as the Roman Saturn. And Israel proclaimed as Saturn, El being the same name of Bel-Saturn, Azar, or Izar being connected immediately with Azar, Osiris, and Azar, Mars, the god of spring, fire, and war. Also solar in nature is the god Saturn, who was the same as El, the Canaanite/Israelite god. The identity of the creator king as the planet Saturn seems to occur throughout the ancient world. The Canaanite and Hebrew El, closely corresponding to the Sumero-Babylonian Anu, was Saturn. Cronus then, whom the Phoenicians call Elas, who was king of the country and subsequently, after his decease, was deified as the star Saturn. Thus Isaiah locates the throne of El, originally the planet Saturn, in the farthest reaches of the north. El, the sun god of the Syrians, the Egyptians, and the Semites, is declared by Plato to be no other than Set or Seth, and El is the primeval Saturn Israel. Shiva is an Ethiopian god, the same as the Chaldean Baal-Bel, thus he is also Saturn. Saturn, El, Seth and Gion, or the biblical Kion of Amos, are all one and the same deity. They are thus identified both with the planet and the god, Shiva, who are, in their turn, shown the prototypes of Saturn, who is the same as Bel, El, Baal, Shiva, and Jehovah Sabaoth. For Jehovah is the generic name of that group or hierarchy of creative planetary angels, under whose star their nation has evolved. He is one of the planetary Elohim of the regent group of Saturn. El, Bel, more complete, Bilaton, the old Bel, whom the Greeks name Kronos, the Romans Saturn, and indeed the planet of this name, claims in Semitism before all gods the first rank. The Phoenicians and Syrians call Saturn, El and Bel and Baal Athen. The word Israel itself, far from being a Jewish appellation, may come from the combination of three different reigning deities: Isis, the earth mother goddess revered throughout the ancient world, Ra, the Egyptian sun god, and El, the Semitic deity passed down in form as Saturn. El was one of the earliest names for the god of the ancient Hebrews, whence Emmanuel, Michael, Gabriel, Samuel, etc. and his worship is reflected in the fact that the Jews still consider Saturday as God's day. The Hebrew El and Adon, Tammuz, are names of Saturn. The Babylonian Bel, like the Ancient of Days in Daniel 7:9, is the boundless time before creation, the unrevealed primal being. In the ancient account of Sankhuniathon, the great god El, Kronos/Saturn, acquires supremacy in a certain place in the center of the earth. The Canaanite El is addressed as bull god, while the Greek Kronos is the horned god. If Yahweh was the bull of Israel, Helios was the Adonian bull. Which brings us to Moloch. Saturn is Moloch. To Saturn Moloch the Israelites, Moabites and Phoenicians offered up their children. His name was El in Phoenicia, from Elah, to go up, ascend, in the heaven, as the sunrise, and the Israelites were, at least at a late period, directed to perform no manual labor on Saturday, Saturn's day. And Moloch the king, the idol of the Ammonites and Phoenicians, was intimately connected both with the solar bull and the planet Saturn. His statue was of brass, with a human body but the head of an ox. In Hebrew, Kab means to die, to perish, to become extinct. Kibo means to descend to Hades. Israel, a name of Saturn, goes down in that direction. Keb is Saturn. Kronos was mourned as the winter sun. Keb is Saturn Moloch Kronos. The sun, Bel, Ammon, Keb, Seb, is both Saturn, Kronos, Typhon and Sol. Ammon-Keb is consequently the concealed light under the earth. The Israelites in Egypt adored El Saturn as Moloch, who from his bad side is Typhon. The origin of child sacrifice in the ancient Near East seems to lie in Phoenicia and its Mediterranean colonies. Such sacrifices have been offered to the Canaanite god El, Greek Kronos, Latin Saturn, who was perceived to be the father of the gods, the creator of creatures, the father of humankind, the eternal king, the ancient of days, the kindly and compassionate god, the god of boundless wisdom. The Arabian Dionysus is Moloch Saturn with offerings of slaughtered men and children. When the Greeks and Latins spoke of Moloch, they always gave him the name of Kronos or Saturn. Thus there can be no doubt that the god to whom the Carthaginians sacrificed children was no other than Moloch. And the writers of Greece and Rome always denominate this cruel deity Kronos and Saturn. When the fire worship existed everywhere and superstition guided by priests was in full sway, the worship of Dionysus Moloch, Saturn, the devourer of children, prevailed in Syria. To Kronos, Saturn, the Phoenicians sacrificed every year the beloved and only begotten children. To Saturn as wicked demon, Typhon, the Egyptians offered animals and men in the darkness. The reference to Saturn occurs in Amos 5:25-26. Did ye bring unto me sacrifices and offerings in the wilderness 40 years, O house of Israel? Yea, ye have borne the tabernacle of your king, Moloch, and the shrine of Chion, your images, the star of your god, which ye made images to yourselves. In Acts 7:41-43 it reads, And they made a calf in those days, and brought a sacrifice unto the idol, and rejoiced in the works of their hands. Did ye offer unto me slain beasts and sacrifices 40 years in the wilderness, O house of Israel? And ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch, and the star of the god Rephan, the figures which ye made to worship them. The difference between the names Chion and Rephan is due either to Rephan being a local Egyptian name for the planet Saturn, and therefore used by the LXX as its equivalent, or to an actual error of transcription in the text from which they were translating, the initial of the word being taken as Rish when it should have been Kaf, I instead of K. The word should therefore be transliterated Kaivan, which is also the name of the planet Saturn. The first is El, God, and Moloch, the second is Ir and Moloch. The worship of Malash, or Moloch had in the most ancient period united itself with that of El Saturnus. A king of Moab offered up his oldest son, his destined successor, on the wall, a sacrifice to Saturn Adonis, or Dionysus Moloch, a Sakal, the fire that consumes or eats. The fire of Saturn surrounds the Ancient of Days. The god that answers by fire lets him be God. 1 Kings 18:24 In Greece, the oldest Dionysus appeared as this fire god Moloch Ariel. He was the Phoenician and Arabian Baal Saturn, the Hebrew El Moloch. In Israel it was considered to be a foreign rite and of Canaanite origin, assimilated to the cult of the Greek Kronos or the Roman Saturn, who is none other than Baal-Hamon, Jeremiah 19:5. Greco-Roman sources report that the Carthaginians burned their children as offerings to Baal-Hamon. Attributes of his Romanized form as an African Saturn indicate that Hammon was a fertility god. Ancient Greek writers identified him with the Titan Cronus. In ancient Rome, he was identified with Saturn. Since El was normally identified with Cronus and Baal-Hamon was also identified with Cronus, it seemed possible they could be equated. More often a connection with Hebrew/Phoenician. Aman brazier has been proposed, in the sense of Baal, Lord of the brazier. The worship of Moloch Saturn ruled in this land thoroughly. The deity had here a six-cornered black temple, the priests were clad in black, offerings were made to him on the seventh day, Saturday. The heavenly image of Moloch was the planet Saturn. James of Sarug says, the Israelites worshipped Saturn. The Sabaeans called him the god of the Jews. The Sabbath is Saturday, Saturn's day. Now, it is a suggestive though imperfect coincidence that among the ancient Semites, who consecrated the seventh day, that is Saturday, to their supreme and sinister deity Saturn, the planet most distant from the sun, the priests on that day, clothed in black, ministered to the god in his black six-sided temple, he having made the world in 6 days, the perfect number? In fact, El is Saturn, Saturn is Moloch. Saturn? For I am the god of 1,000 names.
Okay, so time for Saturday school, Sunday school, whatever you want to call it. So, as far as I'm concerned, all religion is fucked because it tells the same story, except it doesn't tell it the right way. So let's start with this. According to those that say that they're the Elohim, which are the Hebrews, right? God, who is Saturn, obviously, because that's what's on the flag, and that's what runs every religion on this planet, whether you want to admit it or not. It's true. Okay, so Saturn created the Elohim. Okay, that's what it says. It says he created the Elohim, which are the Jews, and they're the humans. Now, if you go to Silver Red Indigo's page, that's a woman, that's a Hebrew woman. She said that they're the humans, but then what did they create? They created us. And if we go and we look, here it says the earliest stories of golems, which are monsters. That's why you can't own anything, remember? Because you're a person, which is a legal fictitious identity. One that resembles a human, but being that of a lower order and not of inheritable blood, can't own nothing because you're a monster. You don't exist. Black's Law Dictionary clearly states that. So the earliest stories of golems date to early Judaism, that Adam was created a golem. When his dust was kneaded into a shapeless husk, like Adam, all golems are created from mud. That's where the phrase, your name is mud. Obviously, that was a poke in the eye by you-know-who. You know, the ones that love us. They were a creature of those who were very holy and close to God. A very holy person was one who strove to approach God, and in the pursuit would gain some of God's wisdom and power. One of these powers was the creation of life. See, you don't have that. However, no matter how holy a person, that's what you are by law, became, a being created by that person would be but a shadow of one created by God. So in essence, what it's saying is, this guy, this creator here created these guys, who, you can go look this up anywhere, is these guys. And these guys, in all their infinite wisdom, created us. Because Adam was a golem. You read it right there. Look at it again. Adam was initially created as a golem. Okay? That's their writing. It ain't mine. Okay? So now we have to look at who fucked up the system. Remember who? Remember what I said? Who would stand to gain by fucking up the system? Well, if they're the human and we're the monsters, then the Bible clearly states that man ate from the apple of the Garden of Eden, from the tree of knowledge, right? And what group of people has a tree in it? Can you guess? That has two pillars. The third one's broke in the middle. Yeah, so there. So all of you fucking self-loathing Christians that run around and keep saying, oh, we fucked up, I got news for you. If you sit down and read it correctly, they fucked up. Because we're monsters. We're not even human by law. A person, one that resembles a human, but being that of a lower order and not of inheritable blood. You don't own nothing. Your car, your title, it says signature of seller. Your house says signature of tenant. It's because you're a monster. Okay? You have to pay to be on the planet. The Elohim, which are the Jews, by their own words and admissions, are the ones that are humans. And then, of course, you got God, Saturn, which is the creator. Now, this is their layout, not mine. Okay? I happen to think that we're the humans, and I think that they're the frauds. But that's just me. I'm just one guy out of 8 billion people. If you read this correctly, the Gentiles didn't do shit. You don't need to be going to church, and you don't need to be paying all this penance and doing this bullshit. Okay? You are set up from the beginning to fail. You are brought to life, just like it says about golems, by a magical piece of paper that was placed on your head. That piece of paper being your birth certificate, which created an account that money was distributed into in an offshore account that the United States uses to grab interest and pay debts. And you can go look that up on your own time, because there ain't enough time to get into that. But this is the real layout of the whole thing. See, they got the Christian convinced that when they say man, they're referring to you. Now, they're referring to the Elohim, which are the Jews. And let me just go pull that up for you. 1 second. All right, so from the video they did Christianity got jack shit to do with Judaism. Here it says in itself, by their own admission. If the self-styled Jews have killed off God, then what sort of God do they have? The Jew is the living God, God incarnate. He is the heavenly man. Right? Right? Human. Man. So who was it that caused the fall in the Garden of Eden? Man could eat of any tree in the garden except the tree of knowledge, the tree of good and evil were the two. Right? So, idiot Christian and idiot other religions, because all your leaders wear black. That's the color of this guy here. At least if you're going to worship, understand who you're worshiping. Okay? If they're not wearing black, they're wearing purple. Black and purple make indigo. Indigo's a biggie for this one. Okay? See all that is? Yeah, that's the man. You, monster. You can't own anything. You bad. You monster. Right? That's what this is. Okay? You're just a monster. Adam was initially created as a golem. That's me and you. So we're innocent. So, all you got to do is look at the country that's flying the cube on their flag, disguised with 6 points, and you'll know who these guys are. And why all religions are worshiping this. Because you're really worshiping this. Because this is this. Wake up. Keep paying at church. Keep being dumb. Keep being stupid. You'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. Who stood to gain by the fall in the garden? Let's just say the story's true. It says that man fucked it up. Well, if you're not Jewish, then you ain't got nothing to worry about. Oh, let me point this out. This isn't hate speech. This is fact. By their own words, by the way that they've set up the system, it says they wrote it. It said that man fell. The Jews have claimed themselves to be man. They claim themselves to be Elohim. Therefore, you deemed us through law, that we are less than human because we are persons. Therefore, we couldn't have possibly had anything to do with what's going on this planet at all. You fucked it up, you know it, and you rewrote the fucking story. And you prance around with that motherfucking lion, which represents Jacob, which represents Saturn. So fuck you. And you stupid fucking retarded Christian fucking moronic dickweeds and all the other religions whose leaders wear black. Can't you fucking put 2 and 2 together? Are you that fucking stupid? Don't you understand? You're worshiping somebody other than what you think you are. If you want to do that, that's fine. But don't fucking run around and try and change the world in the name of the guy that's keeping it in the state that it's in. You idiots.
I've got one that can see.
He's a tall Caucasian male, doesn't appear armed, wearing sunglasses.
I don't like this one bit.
The earliest Hebrew alphabet, discovered by Ron Tappy, carved on a stone at Tel Zait, provides an enticing clue.
Off this wall here.
The stone was incised with this alphabet. The stone was then used to build the wall, and the structure itself suffered massive destruction by fire sometime near the end of the 10th century BCE.
The find is even more significant because Tel Zait was a biblical backwater on the fringes of David's kingdom.
Surely if there was a scribe that could write this alphabet that far away, way out in the boondocks at the extreme western boundary of the kingdom, surely if there was a scribe that could do that out there, there were scribes, much more sophisticated scribes back in the capital.
Could these scribes have been in the court of King David and his son Solomon? Could they have been the earliest biblical writers? In the 18th century, German scholars uncovered a clue to who wrote the Bible, hidden in two different names for God.
According to one account, Abraham knew God by his intimate personal name, conventionally pronounced Yahweh.
Passages with the name Yahweh, which in German is spelled with a J, scholars refer to as J.
But according to other accounts, Abraham knew God simply by the most common Hebrew word for God, which is Elohim.
So the two different writers became known as E for Elohim and J for Yahweh. Most likely based on poetry and songs passed down for generations, they both write a version of Israel's distant past. The stories of Abraham and the Promised Land, Moses and the Exodus.
I'm going to do this video. I had another video scheduled, but I have to do this because this, whatever this guy is giving me a bunch of shit. Let's see. What's his name? Minister of Yahweh. So this guy, this is his logo. Let's take a look at what he has to say, because he's trying to give me some bullshit about Yahweh. I got news for you. Yahweh is the name of Saturn. Saturn is the name of Satan. That's the god of this world. Okay, he's the god of time and space. What I keep trying to tell you guys. Okay, but these guys, these Yahweh freaks, they keep saying, oh, Yahweh, dude, Yahweh comes from the 42-letter name from the Tetragrammaton. A Tetragrammaton is a 5-pointed star. A pentagram in a circle. Ever seen that before? Let's see what he writes. He writes, he's very thoughtful. Don't waste your time here. He clearly has no research, studies, or even 100 hours put into these topics. He bases his information off websites, not books, scrolls, or other true documents. Okay, asshole, what true documents are you using? What, the King James Bible that was written by the Vatican and the Masons? Who King James was openly a Mason? Yahweh? You know what? Stick that fucking shit right up your ass, you dumb bastard. Here, I'm gonna use some actual text to prove my point. Let's move on. Here, the Jews speak Phoenician. Of course, you already knew that because you know every fucking thing, right? The Jews speak Phoenician. They don't have their own language. Phoenicia. You ever heard of it? And they don't make blinds, asshole. So let's read it. The inhabitants of Phoenicia might at first appear to have derived their origin from the same source, pre-Abramite, as the Hebrews, for they spoke the same language. Wow, how about that? Twink, what are you doing? Let's move on. Okay, so now we know that they speak Phoenician, yeah? Okay. But Yahweh's not Saturn, right? Okay, let's move on. What does this say? Let's go here. Baal is the planet Saturn. Baal is also the devil. And the Mohammedites of the 12th century after Christ knew still that the Meccan, i.e. Israel, is one of the names given by the Phoenicians in the latter days to Saturn. Oh, where did I get that? From a comic book? You don't talk about the truth out of real scrolls. Jag off. Yeah, I'm swearing too. Here we go. Let's move on. Between the god of the I can't pronounce it. Sorry, guys. And the god of the Apelles, there is evidently a close relationship, and also it appears with Yahweh, the demerge of the Old Testament Saturn, the black star. Okay, the black star. Remember, Kabbalah is all cube and a black star. And you'll notice what I'm putting in here from the Converse advertisement is a cube and a black star. No, Yahweh isn't Saturn. No, how could you ever come up with that? Let's move on to the next bit. Yahweh's essence. Yahweh was also at an early period represented by a serpent. Oh, you mean the same one in the garden? It's not a snake, it's time, which represents Saturn. A symbol of lightning. A copper god of this sort lasted even down to the time of Hezekiah and was reputed to have been made by Moses himself. The seraphim, pictured often as surrounding Yahweh, were hardly other than the serpents representing the tortoise lightning. Okay? I'd never read anything. What's this say? The astrological Saturn has always been associated with the letter of the law because Saturn is the lawgiver. That's why the men in the courts wear black robes. Everybody that is an authority wears black. Cops, rabbis, judges, priests, Catholic priests, SWAT, Nazis. Rather than the spirit of the Gnostics, and the early Kabbalists identified Saturn with the God of the Old Testament. Gee whiz, who'd have seen that coming? Whom they regarded as a tyrannical father obsessed with the rigid enforcement of the laws. And indeed, there may be very ancient symbolic link between Saturn and Yahweh. For Yahweh's Sabbath or holy day is Saturday. Saturn Day. Saturn's Day. A-hole. Enough. I've had enough of this crap. Yahweh is Saturn. Saturn is Satan. He's the God of laws. He's the lawgiver. He's the one that said he's the Alpha and the Omega. The God of the Old Testament is Saturn. Case closed. Stick it up your fucking ass. Dumb fuck. Ooh, I swore. Oh, then he sends me some crap about, your eyes are blinded if you don't love your brother. Well, I got news for you, buddy. Jesus might love you, but I don't. So go bug off. This is the thing. This is why I get so frustrated with these guys. They tell me I don't do my studies. First of all, I was raised a Lutheran. I believe in Jesus Christ, but that doesn't mean that my language is going to change anytime soon. Second of all, I don't give a rat's ass about your satanic god, you moron. What a bunch of clowns you are. You go worship Yahweh, asshole. You guys want to run around? Go back and look at this guy's logo. It's 3 feathers. 3 is the occultic number for Earth. He's got a black lightning bolt. Huh? The lightning bolt, just like it read in there, represents Lucifer when he was cast down from heaven. Then it's in a black circle, which represents Saturn, and then it's got white inside, which represents the duality, the positive and the negative. In my opinion, this is some Masonic cocksucker trying to play a game by acting like he's an American Indian. Yeah? Well, here's a word for you. Cunt.
Ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch, and the star of your god Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them. And I will carry you away beyond Babylon. And the star of your god Remphan,
and the star of your god Remphan, and the star of your god Remphan.
But ye have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch, and Chiun your images, the star of your god which ye made to yourselves, and Chiun your images, the star of your god,
and Chiun your images, the star of your god, and Chiun your images, the star of your god.
Since the invention of time and the first stirrings of human memory, one story has been told by all the peoples of the world, over and over again, 100,000 versions of the same story. For many centuries we have marveled at the quiet regularity of the heavens, the predictable cosmic cycles, the silent clockwork motions of the stars and planets. But this first story, the mother and father of all stories, tells of an entirely different time, when the planets were not distant specks of light, a time when the planets towered over the earth, immense, unpredictable, and terrifying. In the great myths of the world, there is no golden age without a founding king. There is no founding king without a golden age.
It was at this time that someone handed me a 1.5-page summary of an unpublished Velikovsky manuscript. In this summary, Velikovsky had proposed the unthinkable. He said that during the mythical Golden Age, the Earth may have been a satellite of another planet, a gas giant. He identified this planet as Saturn.
According to ancient Greek poets, philosophers, and historians, the present age is just a shadow of the former epoch, called the Golden Age of Kronos. But who was this ancient god, Kronos? All Greek astronomical traditions agreed that Kronos was the planet Saturn. Our own name for the planets came from the Romans. In unison, Roman poets and historians insisted that in a former time Saturn had ruled as a god-king, producing a paradise on earth. It would be almost impossible to overstate the power of this memory among the different cultures. For the Babylonians, the Hebrews, and the Greeks, the most sacred day of the week was the Sabbath, a ritual remembrance of the lost epoch. And in each of these cultures, This holiest day was the day of Saturn, the Latin Saturnidis, or Saturn's Day, the Celtic day of Ceter, our Saturday. But the Golden Age did not last. In the myths of Quetzalcoatl, of Ra, and of An, of Kronos and of Saturn, the Golden Age does not just come to an end. It ends violently. And with the collapse of the Golden Age arrives the feared comet, the dragon of darkness, the fall into the cosmic night, the clash of the titans. All of the symbols of doomsday. Sunrise. To the star worshippers, a symbol of the cosmic dawn, when the universal monarch, the first sun god, shone above the world. The ancient Greeks called their sun god Helios. We assume they were referring to the sun we know, the sun that rises in the east and sets in the west. But in the earliest Greek manuscripts, Helios was the name of the planet Saturn. And the Greeks were not alone. The Babylonian Shamash, always translated as sun, was identified as Saturn. So also the Egyptian Ra, the Hindu Surya, the Latin Sol. But Saturn is a mere dot in a starry expanse. What could have caused the first star worshippers to celebrate that minute speck as the sun?
Velikovsky talked about a confusion between Saturn and the sun in the ancient languages. I came to realize it was not a matter of confusion. For the ancients, Saturn was the revered sun god.
Every day our sun rises in the east and sets in the west. But the archaic sun god Saturn did not rise or set. It did not move. Egyptian texts say of the sun god Atum or Ra, the great god lives fixed in the middle of the sky. Surprisingly, the Babylonians used almost exactly the same language to describe the sun god Shamash in the stationary center of heaven. For an earthbound observer, there is only one motionless spot in the sky, the celestial pole. The stars we see are actually cutting a circle around the polar axis, close to the star Polaris. Of course, nothing would seem more irrational than an ancient sun god at this location. And yet, throughout the Near East, the universal monarch appears as a central sun called the axis and the pole of the world. To the Hindus, the sun god Surya occupied the place of supreme rest, the motionless site. So too the Greek Helios, and the Aztec Quetzalcoatl. In their earliest expressions, these figures occupy the stationary cosmic center. There is an astonishing unity to this global tradition. Ancient Iranian astronomers identified the pole as Saturn's home, and so did the Neoplatonists of Greece. Roman poets remembered Saturn as the steadfast star, and Chinese astronomers recalled that, in the beginning, Saturn was the arch premier at the celestial pole. How can this be, that the ancient sun god Saturn once stood where no sun or planet stands today?
By the summer of 1972, I had gathered together all of these fascinating pieces. I could see obvious patterns, but the larger picture continued to elude me. I became fixated on one strange idea, an idea endlessly repeated in pictographs and symbols around the globe, a great crescent in the sky. Scholars have always assumed it meant the moon, but the crescent in the pictographs does not behave like the moon.
On every continent, archaeologists have uncovered curious drawings of an archaic sun. They do not look like our sun, yet they are strangely similar. And most mysterious of all is the great crescent encircling the sphere of this enigmatic sun. Early Egyptian drawings place crescent horns on the sun god Ra. In Mesopotamia, the crescent is repeatedly drawn wrapped around the sun god Shamash. A crescent horn turning in the sky. The image appears throughout the world. A vast crescent, unlike anything in our own sky today.
Ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch, and the star of your god Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them. And I will carry you away beyond Babylon. And the star of your god Remphan,
and the star of your god Remphan, and the star of your god Remphan.
But ye have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch, and Chayun your images, the star of your god which ye made to yourselves, and Chayun your images, the star of your god,
and Chayun your images, the star of your god, and Chayun your images, the star of your god.